Tell me what you love about New York City.
I think what I really like about New York City is the diversity of all the different ethnic cultures that are here. The city never sleeps.
Yeah.
So no matter where you are, I think you could always find something to do in New York. It's very exciting. You know, it can be overwhelming at times, but I think I would just love everything about New York.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in the Bronx, in a small neighborhood called Five Corners. And I kind of like related to like a Bronx Tale, small Italian community where we all just played outside and did what we had to do, and you needed to be home before the lights came on. Played stoop ball and stick ball and did all those things that you do in the Bronx.
When did you know that public safety was the path for you?
I really was just watching some TV shows on TV, and I grew up on Morris Park. There was two large ambulance stations where ambulances drove up and down the neighborhood all day, and you see the lights and the sirens, and you watch some movies. You're like, wow, that's got to be exciting. And before that, I was doing actually a florist before that, so I had no medical training whatsoever, and I did someone's wedding flowers. And he said, there's a test coming up to become an EMT in New York City. You should really take it. It's a great career path. And I was like, yeah, maybe next time. But he's like, it's great, Joe. You'll love it. And I took the test, and next thing I knew, the weekend after, I was in the academy.
Wow.
Yeah.
So explain to me, the department itself. So you have FDNY, but then you have the whole EMS division of that. Can you kind of explain the organization of that?
Sure. Well, initially, New York City used EMS, and there was the police department and the fire department. There were three separate entities. And then there was a merger where the New York City EMS on the HHE was pulled into the New York City Fire Department. So we were the same people, doing the same job, just under a different organization or group head. So we pulled us into the New York City Fire Department. And as an EMT and paramedic, we handle all the medical calls and medical response calls. And I believe the New York City EMS, Bureau of EMS, responds to almost 5,000 calls a day. You can check me on the number, but it's like 1.4 million calls annually. It's astonishing the number of calls for help medical help that we get. The police gets their calls, and fire department gets their fire calls, and then the EMS portion is just amazing how many, we have 600-700 ambulances responding to these 5,000 calls a day. It's overwhelming, yeah.
That's unbelievable. And does EMS roll every time fire rolls?
Depending on how the job comes in the system, there's a matrix where they decide who goes to what call. So if we use a cardiac arrest as the example, that call type would probably get a paramedic unit, an EMT ambulance, an engine company, a fire company, and probably a lieutenant, just so everyone can work together to for the benefit of the patient.
Okay.
Where if it came in as just a sprained ankle, maybe that call would require just a BLS ambulance. It all depends on what that call receiving operator hears on the phone or ascertains from the person calling 911.
Got it. It's the best part of your job.
I think the best part of my job is seeing the reward or that the families have. They're calling us at the worst time in their lives. You're calling 911. Someone in your family is not doing well. They're very sick, and it's just a great experience to be able to help them. And I would say you pretty much pull them out of the grave. They're just circling that drain, and you come in and try to calm everyone down. You take a deep breath and pretty much say, "Watch this." It's really cool, and you give them that definitive care like they do in the emergency room, like right in their house or right in the middle of the street, and then you see that person like just bounce back. And now it's like nothing ever happened. That's just it's an overwhelming experience,
Yeah, I can't imagine, but that's pretty amazing. To go back a little bit, to be an EMT and to choose that walk of life, when did you realize that was something that was for you? Because it's not common. Tell me, as you were younger, were you just fascinated with the ability to, like, I want to be able to fix a person?
I think that's what it came. First, it's always the show and the lights and the excitement of the job, and then when I started to do my training and I went on an ambulance rotation, and I had this very bad asthmatic, and she was young. She was 12, 13 years old, and she was barely breathing. And we came on the scene, and we gave her some emergency medicine. And immediately we were ventilating her, and everyone's screaming, the dog is barking, and we're like, just relax, and we started an IV and we gave her some medicine, and then bam, that kid was sitting up, and then she was able to get up and hug us and say thank you. I'm like, wow, and everyone thanks you, and if that was your family, how you would feel, and it's just rewarding to see that immediately, response, and it's great. Sometimes it doesn't work, and we have bad outcomes, and that could be crushing. But the ones that we do help, it makes up for the other ones.
How do you balance those outcomes?
Well, I go home and I kiss my family, and I hug them a little harder. I try not to procrastinate on things that I do. If I say I'm going to do something, I try to do them now, because tomorrow may not be here. And realize that we can't save everyone. There's many things in my career that I've seen that are just overwhelming for anyone to see, and the ones that we do save, make up. Because I feel like I'm always chasing. Everybody wants to have that hot job. Whether you're a police officer, you want to be on that big call. If you're a firefighter, you want to be on that big fire. If you're a EMT or a paramedic, you want to be challenged on that hot call where, you're going to make that life change for someone. And when it works out, it's just an amazing feeling. And the ones that I lose, I go home, and my family knows when we've had a rough day. I'll come home and you'll say I love you a little bit differently, or you'll hug them a little bit more, or I'll squeeze my grandchildren a little bit differently, and they pick up on it, So, but it definitely it soothes us inside, I think that's what helps.
Do you think that call to service is something that is genetic? Being around the guys that you're around, do you think it's inherent?
I really think it is. I mean, I love my job, and it shows, and everyone who I work with, they love their job also. And it may be in my genes and genetic, and it just happened to transfer because my son's a paramedic, who also works in our system. So it's great to see him doing the same things that I do, and he comes home and tells the same stories, and I provide him a little counseling, and we talk over things on how we do things a little differently. But I think you have to have it in you, to want to help someone, and then once you get that feeling that medicine or that treatment that you work, I feel I'm always chasing that, inside that hot job, and you say, all right, I did this last time, it didn't work, maybe I'll try it another way this time, and maybe I'll have a better outcome.
How did you feel when you found out your son wanted to be a paramedic?
I was definitely overwhelmed. It's definitely an honor. I got to compete with him. We represent Team USA and FDNY at EMS competitions, and to have him compete with us on our team was an incredible experience for our family. But it's definitely, everyone always says, wow, your son's incredible, and I'm very proud of him. So.
That's awesome. I'm sure Mom is pretty proud of him too.
Oh, the whole family is. We're all just in awe,
Yeah.
That where else, where your son follows your same career path and, became an EMT like I did, and now became a medic and works in our system. It's overwhelming,
Oh, it definitely answers the question about, is it genetic? And it's
Yeah.
like, well, obviously it is in this case.
Yeah, it is. It's incredible.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, September 11th, 01. Tell me how your day started.
So, I'm very ritual in the morning. So I responded came into work, should I say, to Jacoby Hospital. That's where my ambulance came out. I was working a vehicle. Our call sign was 03 John, and it was a EMT BLS crew. I was working with my good partner that day, Mike Negron. So we pretty much asked the same questions at the same time, and you can pretty much feel like each other, like where we're going to go or what we're going to do. So that we had that bond. So on September 11th, we just happened to get some coffee. We were checking out our ambulance vehicle to make sure it was okay. And we parked at a location in the Bronx where we usually sit. It's our call location. And like I said, we're always listening for that hot job. And we heard a unit come over screaming for help, that there's been a plane crash into the building downtown. And from where we were sitting in the South Bronx, we could actually see like where the World Trade Center was in the distance. So, Mike turned to me, he's like, we got to go. And I was like, well, absolutely, man, let's go. I'm like, step on the gas, let's do some fancy driving.
Right.
So immediately, we popped lights on. Mike was driving, and we headed towards, the Trade Center, trying to pretty much buff the call because nobody was really assigned to it. On the way down, we weren't getting a lot of information from our dispatcher, so we called our family. And that seemed to work out because technology wasn't the same back then. And we were calling, I was calling my wife, Dawn, and I was asking her, listen, we're going to this call. I'm like, is it on the news? And she was telling me what she was seeing on the news. And Mike was calling someone trying to find out. And, we got that feeling that things were going to be different that day because I could tell just the way, she was talking to me. Married 30 years now. And she was like, just be careful, be careful. And I was like, and it was just different that time, So we knew where we were going, it was definitely going to challenge us. It would probably bring every skill, into play that we have ever learned, And we definitely didn't need to second guess our actions, because it could mean our doom,
Yeah.
So the drive didn't take too long. We jumped into a caravan of a bunch of emergency vehicles that were going down the main highway, the FDR. And it just seemed like forever. The first week, I would say, seemed like forever, seemed like just one day. People say, how do you feel about those days? And I really don't remember. I could probably recall all the details, but that first week was just one long day. Until a week later, I heard on the radio, it's been a week since the World Trade Center day, on the 9/11. I'm like, wow, it's been a week, So when we approached out of the tunnel for the FDR and we pulled up in front of this the location, of the World Trade Center, we were assigned to a forward staging area on Vesey and West, where we backed in our ambulance, grabbed all our equipment, and we headed towards the lobby of the buildings. There was probably 8 or 10 of us in this forward triage group, where we started to remove people from the lobby to a forward triage and treatment area. I think at the Bank of America, across the street on Vesey and West, and maybe about the second time we've done that, that's when the second plane hit. So, we fell back. We just happened to be coming out of the building at that time. So as the debris, rained down, we just happened to be far enough from the building, not to perish. And then we just, we were overwhelmed by the amount of people we were taking care of. 5 or 6 of us, with 30, 40 patients is definitely an overwhelming task to accomplish between all of us. We were brought several patients who, didn't survive, and that's a hard decision right there, where you figure when you triage from a group of people and you say that person's not going to make it, and we black tag them, and move them off to the side, respectfully. Because providing resources for an outcome that's just always going to be the same, is hard to do. And, we do that on all kinds of calls, motor vehicle accidents, but this one was different, And then probably about an hour into it, I had a emergency services police officer who came into our location and said, "You guys got to go. You guys got to go. You need to evacuate this location," because they had some things saying maybe the buildings weren't stable. And as soon as we came out of the building and started heading west on Vesey Street, that's when the first building collapsed.
When you arrived and you started working on folks and doing the and working on patients, did it ever cross your mind that that building could come down?
No, not at all. I think being a paramedic and working with the team that I work with, I get that feeling of invincibility a little bit. I'm like, if anything happens, I know I have, you'll meet Joe later. I'll have Joe with me. And he's the same way, I'll have Joe with me, or Randy, or somebody. And we'll always take care of each other, But, it's the largest building in the world. To have something that large, and it's just amazing when you're standing in front of something that large, and how could it fall? Well, it didn't question, that one didn't even enter our minds. We always try to provide a space or egress, where we can get out. So when we pulled our ambulance into that location, it was always facing out and away. So if anything happened, I can put it in gear and, we can drive out. But that day we pulled right there, didn't even think about creating that barrier between, or a safe spot, because, it's New York, We thought it was an accident. Who thought it was a terrorist event? We didn't realize that until the second plane hit, and then that's when we realized, together, that wow, it's not an accident.
That was my next question: is what went through your head when that second plane hit?
I was crushed. I'm very, I think I'm very emotional about 9/11. I think we all are. Whether some people say it's a little bit of survivor guilt, or, I become more patriotic than usual, It was just great when the F-16s came and they flew over New York. I felt like I could take a breath then again, that, all right, maybe we're somewhat protected now. But it was just very overwhelming, to realize that we weren't safe at that moment. But we knew we just needed to continue to do what we do, and just being involved with taking care of so many people, that pretty much took over. And you're focused on, that specific task, and all the other things, didn't really matter at that moment.
Where were you when the second tower came down?
So when the second tower came down, I was doing forward triage in the Bank of America. So I was off the corner of Vesey and West in a forward triage and treatment area. I remember everyone started to run at us, and you felt the ground rumble. So it was like a train was coming, And I just happened to turn around and look, and we started to see the building start to pancake. So me and my partner pretty much stopped what we were doing. We were grabbing people, saying, "Run, run, run." And we started heading west on Vesey. And once the building fell, that whole pyroblastic or debris cloud came at us. And we couldn't get away from it. It was coming fast. Some people say it was going 30, 35 miles per hour at our location. So I kind of like just ducked into like an indent in a huge window frame there at the Bank of America, and that debris cloud just came and, just blew right past us. And, it was a bright, beautiful, sunny day, and now it was just pitch black, dust, and, we're all covered in soot. And I think we're just trying to compose ourselves, with our ears ringing, and trying to catch our breath at that time,
So after the debris cloud, it doesn't stop.
No.
So once you realize you're still there and you do get that composure, what does rescue look like after that?
So I hear lots of different. Rescue with that. I remember hearing the Fidney pass alarms. our firefighters wear Scott packs. So they have this personal safety alarm system. So if you notice, you'll hear them go off when they're standing still for a moment of time. And that's all I heard was these pass alarms going off, off. On the days following September 11th, we realized we lost 343 FDNY paramedics, FDNY, employees, firefighters. There was 2 paramedics and whatever the numbers are, 26 CSU police officers and some different other agencies lost people. But the pass alarm's going off. So, our first thing was just go to where those alarms are sounding off, and there was a rubble pile, and we would move some debris, and there'd be someone who didn't make it, and again we would check, again, and then pick them up, remove them to a casualty collection point where we were gonna put our black tag patients, silence their pass alarms, and just keep going, to try to find maybe someone who did survive. So every time you went from one alarm to another alarm to another alarm, and there was, 1 or 2 that we were able to help, which made up for the other ones,
At some point in time, it goes from a rescue to a recovery. When was that?
I'm not too sure on the time frame, but I believe it was, a week to 2 weeks after the initial collapse of September 11th. They said that we're in the recovery phase. That day of September 11th, all our phones went dead. I wasn't able to, like I mentioned earlier, I was talking to my wife. So after the collapse, all our cell phones didn't work. And she was trying to call, I was trying to call her. And no one knew, where anybody was. Until about 11 o'clock that night, my phone, I was able to get to a Verizon phone, and I called her. And then they knew that we survived the collapse. Those first couple days was overwhelming. I did a removal of those who perished. And then probably about a week to 10 days afterwards, now was a recovery mission where we were assigned to a morgue detail. So I wasn't working down there as a BLS ambulance, 03 John, as an EMT. I was assigned to do morgue recovery detail. And that was definitely something that I felt I needed to do. We were all definitely fixed on the TVs. That night, I couldn't sleep. The next day, you're just watching the TV, and you're hoping that they can find someone in that little pocket. There's over 3,000 people, who perished that day, and did they find someone here? So we were watching the TV. So it was definitely crushing to find out now we've moved into another stage of recovery, and now the task is different. But if something happened to, me, I know the guys would do everything they could, to bring my body back, to my family, so that I can have the proper burial. So I think we were definitely, it compelled us to move on, and keep doing what needed to be done, out of respect, out of tradition. Definitely something that I did hundreds of times. It was, we would find someone who was crushed or body part or, mangled. It's horrifying, and then you would take a deep breath, close your eyes, say some type of internal prayer, whatever you believe in. A priest would come over, give a blessing. We would remove that member, that hero, into a Stokes basket, drape them with that American flag, and then again, salute, pick them up, another prayer, onto a quad or a gator, we call it, and then start that procession to our morgue, where again, it would be a prayer, and that went on over and over and over again, but it's something that needed to be done. And I think that's, I felt myself very patriotic, even more now. And it meant a lot, to do that over and over again. I felt honored, to do it for them.
There's a saying that, nobody would ever wish for another September 11th. but we could probably use another September 12th. So tell me how the city and the country stood around you guys.
Oh, that's amazing that you said that. I was someone that was the day after I came into work on the 12th. I had to come in because I had to get my name off the missing list. So we weren't assigned to work on normal unit. And me and my partner Mike were separated on September 11th. So I was working with someone else, and it just so happened that I'm going to get my coffee and bagel in the morning. And as I'm standing at the counter, someone came over and said, no, we got your bagel and coffee. And I was like, no, it's okay. They're like, no, God bless you. And we came out, and there were people outside, and they were tying like ribbons on our ambulance. And it was definitely an incredible experience for no matter where we were. People were, for the days and weeks after September 11th, were thanking us. And, you know, usually when you respond to someone's house, they're like, what took you so long? You know, now it was, thank you for being there. I think people stopped calling 911 the days after September 11th for things that didn't need 911 transport. Or they would, you know, while we're in their house and we're taking care of that asthmatic, for instance, they're like, can I give you a sandwich? Can I give you coffee or give you a hug? So it definitely was overwhelming, and it was great to see the patriotism from everyone in New York.
Being that it's 20 years later, what would be the one thing that you would tell the future you in 2021 about the men and women that answered that call to service that day?
Well, I don't know. I think I would have to tell them, well, tell me, you know, that I'm very proud of what they do every day, and you know, we're just honored, you know, to be a first responder, you know, and even though sometimes they feel like they don't get the recognition that they deserve, we're also appreciative of what they do. And I need them to know that if they need someone to talk to, you know, that we're all here, our peer support, our senior members. You know, my phone is always on, you know, so for those that deal with situations that they can't handle, or, you know, they see something that's traumatic and they just want to talk to someone who is another first responder who's been there, who's been in their shoes, you know, whether they're in New York or in a different state, just pick up the phone. You know, I'll answer no matter what time of the day it is, because I wish there'd be more times where we can help each other, you know, because they really, a lot of them need help, you know, rather than turn to other directions, you know.
So last question. Tell me about that flag over your shoulder.
Oh, my goodness. So the flag over my shoulder, that's my 9/11 flag. We were assigned to a parade in July. And I taped the flag on my antenna of my ambulance, and we drove down this block in the Bronx where I grew up, you know, on Morris Park. We were assigned to the parade detail. And that flag, we never took it off. On the days of September 11th, our vehicle was parked on Vesey and West, and it's tethered because we just let it be on our ambulance. And the days after September 11th, it might have been the 15th, I said, I gotta get to the ambulance. And Mike was like, why? I'm like, I need the flag. And I went over, and they moved all the vehicles that were destroyed. And our vehicle was one of the vehicles that was destroyed. And I went over and I cut the flag off, and I cherish it. I take it with us no matter where we travel around the world. You know, like I said, I'm very patriotic. That reminds me of, you know, the man I am and where I came from, I believe. And it's just a great symbol of what we are as Americans. You know, it's a symbol of, you know, those of my members who are friends and who didn't make it that day, and I'll never forget them. Like I said earlier, the days of September 11th were overwhelming. On, I believe it was September 13th, I had a Secret Service gentleman come up to me and said to me, hey, you're one of the first responders who were here on that day. And I said, yeah. And he's like, well, President Bush is coming, and he wants to be with you guys to do a removal. And I said, oh, that would be great. And he's like, show me your ID. So I showed him my ID, and it just so happened that one of the dogs hit on where someone perished. So I was in this hole. I was like 20 feet down, 30 feet across. And I happened to look back, and there was President Bush standing at the top of the hole. And he came down, was escorted with the Secret Service. And together, we removed one of our firefighters who perished that day. Again, we did the whole prayer thing. We laid him out in a Stokes basket. We covered them with an American flag. And it was great because we all picked up the basket together, me, two other partners, with the guides of the Secret Service and the president. And we placed it on the gator. And he sat right next to me, and we drove through a slow procession that went 2.5 blocks, while everyone stood at attention, all the iron workers, construction, PD, fire, EMS, Port Authority, police, everyone just standing at attention as we drove this fallen member to the morgue. We removed that basket into the morgue, and when I came out, I was given an American flag from the president, and he said, thank you for your service. Is there anything you need? And I said, it was very moving. You could see he was moved and having tears in his eyes. I'm like, you know what I need? I need some Yankee tickets. I'll need to go to the World Series, man. That would make things a lot better. And it was great because a couple days later, I received a phone call from the White House, and I was escorting Congressman Pete King and the president to the World Series, even though our Yankees lost. And I was there the night that he threw out the first game-winning pitch. So it was just a great honor to meet him and to share that moment with him. Just to see him standing there on the pile, with the bullhorn saying, we're all with you. Again, made us push on forward, and I'll cherish that moment forever. Being on the pile and was very, very stressful. We always were hopeful, that we can find someone who's made it. But we were told to listen for the horns, because if you heard whatever the signal was, 1 or 2 beeps, that means like to evacuate. And it was, very stressful. The days before we were going in, it was like this ritual. You would take a Sharpie, some of the guys, and write your shield number on your arm or your leg or a limb. So if something happened, they would know that 4461's my shield. Is Joe, paramedic Fortis, And we all looked out for each other, but we had this high anxiety and all this stress because at any moment we thought, some of the building was still up. Is it going to fall on us? All the other surrounding buildings were destroyed. Even the Marriott Hotel, they had big pieces of the Trade Center in there. So just being in that environment, something that's it's not normal, We do search and rescue, but this was definitely more overwhelming than anything that I've ever experienced in my career. When anything large falls, in buildings you have large slabs of concrete and steel that's twisted. You're kind of like crawling through like a little clubhouse. All these little clubhouses that you made when you were younger, that they're not stable. There's stuff all over it. So if you put a whole bunch of chairs together in the backyard and you made like your little obstacle course, that's kind of like how it was, except what intensified it was the smoke, the sounds of those pass alarms, everyone screaming, the inability to see, the glass, the danger. Initially, we didn't have the equipment we should have because we just didn't take it with us. It's not because we weren't provided. My jacket or a helmet, wasn't appropriate, but we still did what we had to do, digging. Now, we have gloves, we have different PPE and different protection, but we're hopefully a little more prepared. You learn always from a different event how you can do things a little differently. but those memories always come back, and I'm sure the guys will tell you that, like for instance, if they saw what happened in Florida recently, that'll bring us right back to, 9/11, a clock or something else. It'll just bring you right back to that day, or a smell. Will always remind us of, what we did those days and the months afterwards. I think finding them was the reason that we kept pushing on, over and over and over again, to find, pieces of people who haven't made it, this crushing. And then when we found that one, or that second one, that we were able to do something for, it's another reason why I became a paramedic, to help them out and take care of those injuries. One of the gentlemen that we were taking care of had a significant bleed coming from his arm, and then just to tourniquet that arm and stabilize it, and and then get him off to a vehicle that can, take him to a hospital, to the transportation area where he would be evacuated, and then go back, was, we all looked at each other and said, yeah, that's how you do it, man. Let's go, let's do it again. Let's do it again. And we were just always, trying to, again, like I said, search for that hot job and, make that difference. And that was one of the times where, that life threat that he was having at that time was taken care of. Like I said, we talked earlier, it may be genetic, it may be something, you have that, I have that alpha paramedic tech personality. And I don't think everyone can be heroes. Whether you're a paramedic, an EMT, a lay rescuer, just being there, at the right time, everyone can be. I watched an accident the other day where just some people walking by lifted a car off someone, and at that point, they were the true heroes, to save that mother and that child. So I think everybody has something in them that drive to want to help. It's just that moment, they say we were heroes. I don't think myself as a hero. I think it was just I was there at the right time to make a difference, and I think we all have that in us, to make that difference one day.